We're not teachers. We're not running a curriculum that says we're teaching you how to do this based on a theoretical book. It's real life experience. And that's why we want to do the podcast.
People don't want advice. They want to hear stories and experiences. Don't tell me how I should do things or how you would do it. Tell me a time when you've actually had that thing happen. So we really structured the questions that we ask in the podcast around the hero story.
How many problems can be solved in IT by turning it on and off again? Welcome to another episode of Smarter Podcasting with me, your host, Neil Mackay, the podcast guy. I started 7 Million Bytes podcast to help people around the world make the best podcast possible. We've now worked on over 70 podcasts, helped with thousands of episodes, millions of downloads, and helped shows get to the top of the charts. In this episode, my guests today are going to share with you why you should start a podcast for your business and why they started a podcast for their business with the help of 7 Million Bytes podcast. This today, right now, what you're listening to is one of the most special episodes I've ever done of Smarter Podcasting. There's two reasons for that. One, if you're listening, it probably just sounds the same as every other episode. I hope the quality is just as good. But if you are watching on YouTube, you will see that we are actually recording and filming in the brand new Saigon Podcast Studio by 7 Million Bytes podcast, right in the heart of Saigon. We just opened about a week ago. I've been busting my ass for the last few weeks to get this place up and ready. We now have the Godox lights. We have 3 Sony cameras. We got the same microphones I've always had. We got some Shure microphones, and we have an amazing location as well. So go check us out on YouTube to see that. But the other reason why this is extra special is because of my guests today. So my guests today are actually based in Bali. They're from Australia, so there's no real surprise. A couple of Australians in Bali. They had an amazing business that they sold, semi-retired in Bali. No, not really. One of my guests today, she is an EOS implementer who came to me through Deborah Chantry-Taylor, who's one of our clients and has been so for many, many years. And they wanted to make a podcast about how they can help IT service providers using the EOS system. And so they came to me recently and they said, hey, we want to start a podcast for our business. And they actually haven't even released an episode yet, but we have helped make the first 2. So not only are they a client of 7 Million Bytes podcast, we are here in Vietnam. They're based in Bali and they're actually here in Vietnam, right as we have a space in the studio. So I invited them here today to be the first ever guests recorded live in person in the studio. And they are the first ever time that I've met a client from overseas in real life. So it is an extra special episode and I'm really, really excited to introduce Jenny and Nick Clift. Thank you very much for joining me on this extra special episode of Smarter Podcasting.
Thanks, Neil. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. And yeah, we just happened to be here and reached out and yeah, just as timing was perfect.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was like, you've got to come in. So first off the bat, I got to be self-serving. What do you think of the studio?
I really like the work you've done with the brick wall.
I did nothing for that. That was already there.
Very impressive.
The one thing I did nothing for.
Yeah.
That's what you point out.
And just getting prepped for this episode, it was interesting for me to look at the technology because that's what we're from, a technology industry. And there's a lot of stuff goes into this, guys. So when you're out there watching, and now I have a new appreciation for watching people that do YouTube videos and podcasts because there's a lot of stuff you have to get right to make it happen. So yeah, well done.
Thank you very much. That's cool. That's cool to hear. Because even before we started, so we got 3 cameras. I got to press record on all of it. And it sounds so simple, but if you forget one of them, and I've done it, I've got to make sure the SD cards are all full, empty, not full, which I've done before as well. We did a recording and then afterwards I looked at the camera. This was just a test recording. Looked at the camera, it said SD card full, so we'd only captured half of it. It is backed up, but in 1080p, the cameras are in 4K. Then I've got to make sure I get the right hard drive, the right cables. You guys will know all this in IT. I've got to press record.
You have to make sure the switches are in the right direction.
Well, that's what I was getting to. The last thing is, not only that, so I've been prepping for an hour before you guys got here. These guys have showed up. I've got everything ready, and there's probably still something not working. And as we go to start, I couldn't hear myself on my microphone. They could hear themselves on theirs. And then Nick looks at my microphone. He's like, I don't think you've turned it on.
Simple things, mate. Like I said, it's actually a complicated setup. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
And it is that, do you come across that in your business, or did you when you were doing IT, that sometimes it's just so simple?
Yeah, absolutely. And the reason I was interested in the mixer deck, the Black Magic, is that I was procuring some stuff for one of our customers, a council, and they have a big auditorium where they have like 16 people around a table and similar issues. They want to live stream it, and we're trying to figure out how to do that. And the audio was just terrible. And I said to them, look, it's not my expertise. I'll get a guy to come and have a look at this. And I gave him all the specs, and it was like a $60,000 solution. They go, we just need to live stream one of the council meetings. I said, I don't think I want to invest that much money. So it is complicated for sure. So now I have a new appreciation for it. But yeah, it's the little things, and you've got to double check. So you've done well to get it up and running in a week, that's for sure.
It's been a lot of work. Well, one thing I did an episode recently on my other show, so I have another podcast called the Vietnam Podcast, which has led to 7 Million Bikes podcast and this business. And I was interviewing a woman who runs a tech shop here. And I have the same question for her that I asked, same question for you that I asked her. How many problems can be solved in IT by turning it on and off again?
Well, none actually, because you have to turn it off, then on.
Oh,
but everyone does say turn it on and off.
Yeah, that's true.
It's already on, But
why is that?
It's just because there's so many things happening, especially with software and the programs, and people exit, they don't exit properly, or they leave things hanging around. And there's a technical thing called a memory leak. So applications use resources on the computer, and even though you exit them, it leaves a bit of code in memory, and eventually that memory runs out of capacity. So turning it off and back on is actually a very logical step. As long as you haven't got work you haven't saved.
Yeah.
You must save your work. Yeah.
I remember years ago when I lived in Australia, I lived in Perth, and my internet wasn't working. So I called up, and I'll never forget this. My wife and I it's like an in-joke, we still say it to each other. This guy on the end of the phone said, have you power cycled the device? Now you're nodding. I had no idea what power cycle meant. I was like, what does that mean, power cycle the device? No, I haven't done that. And he went, oh, it means you turn it off and on. And I was like, oh, no, I haven't done that. He's like, okay, try that. Did that. Bang, worked like that. And then even last week, my internet stopped working. Called up the internet provider. Have you turned it off and on? No, I tried that. Still not working. Okay, no worries. We'll send out a technician. Technician comes out. Have you turned it off and on? I said, yep, no worries. Did you turn the router off and on? The Wi-Fi router? I was like, no, just the TV box. And he's like, turn the Wi-Fi, because it was the TV box that wasn't working, which is connected to the internet. Turn the Wi-Fi router off and on. Bang, comes back on. I was like, sorry, I've just wasted your time coming out here, but that must happen all the time.
And so embarrassingly, having run an IT company for 28 years, that is about the extent of my technical capacity. So and it was an in-joke within our team that if I answered a phone and I'd just ask a couple of questions, like this particular incident was at a hospital that we looked after, and one computer wasn't running one application. And I said to the guy, so if you go to the other two computers on your desk, it's fine. Yeah. I said, okay, well, turn it off, count to 10, turn it back on, and I fixed it. And even my exposure, I guess, in the industry, but just thinking through, well, if it's working on those two, it's not an application problem, it's a computer problem. But in those environments, say a hospital, when do the computers ever get turned off? Because they are 24/7. Yeah. And that's Nick's standard. With my Apple laptop, he'll look at it and go, oh my God, have you seen all of these red exclamation marks? And how much do you have open? And did you see this pop up? I'm like, no, didn't see any of it. I just do my stuff.
Do you close your tabs? Because that's the thing with my wife. She has about 50 tabs open. And years ago, I had IT come to my desk at a company I worked for because my computer was running slow. I thought it was an old computer, blah, blah, blah. I had about 50 tabs open. He closed them all. He's like, have you turned this on and off? No. Turn it off. Suddenly, bang, computer starts working. I didn't realize that every tab runs RAM, right?
Like that's that memory leak thing, yeah. Right.
Which I just thought Chrome was one thing. I didn't think tabs. So yeah, Adri, sometimes she just has like so many tabs open.
So when I get the support call from my business partner here, I said, have you turned it off and on? What?
Yeah, I did that a few weeks ago.
Just reboot the computer, then come back to me, and then we'll have a look at what's really going on. So it's a true thing. It doesn't solve all problems, but it's a good first level kind of step.
I got one more story to share with you, and then we'll jump into podcasting. The best story I ever heard years ago was from someone who said that they were in IT and they were kind of and now they're quite high level, but they were saying they're quite early in their career, so quite low level employee at and with this company, and they got called by like the CEO to come and have a look at his computer.
Oh, yeah.
So he got up. Yeah, I know, right? And he got climbed under his desk, and the CEO was like, my computer wasn't turned on. But he didn't want to tell the CEO and embarrass him, so he just pretended that he fixed it. But all he did was like connect it and turn it on. And he's like, all right, it's fixed now. Like save face for everybody.
Well, we got that from a neighbour. A neighbour rang at like 9 o'clock on a Sunday night, and in absolute state. And in the end, Nick tried talking through various things. Are you sure it's plugged in? Are the lights on? The usual sort of questions. And went over there, and the plug had come out of the power socket on the wall. Like,
so many simple solutions for something that's so technical.
This is where you can't help but years and years of experience. That stuff is noticing things. If you look to the center of the room behind the clock, you will notice there's a power socket about to fall out of your power board there.
Which one?
The black one that's powering the camera.
All right, let me double check that. I don't have my glasses on.
I don't want your camera to
now.
go flat in the middle of the
no,
episode.
It's backed up with food.
Yeah, there you go. See, they're the kind of things you notice.
Well, I was just talking with someone yesterday about, and I think it's so true with podcasting as well, is it's about experience, but he's like, you just can't buy it. He runs a bar, but even just setting up this place has been an incredible experience to learn so much. We did one recording last week. It was like a free recording to try and learn the tricks. I learned so much right away. So one of the cameras overheated, which I didn't even know that was a thing because I tried to turn the aircon down to make it, less noisy in the background, but it ended up making it too warm in here. So I was like, okay, so we need to keep the aircon at a certain temperature.
I appreciate that, being in Vietnam.
Yeah, right.
Degrees,
yeah. The other one was one of the cameras, the battery wasn't fully charged before. And so what I learned was when you're recording, even though it's plugged in, it doesn't charge quicker than it drains. So I never knew that was a thing at all. So the camera drained, even though it was plugged in, and I was using ChatGPT for everything. It's like you're gonna have to wait till it gets more battery. So that was the other thing I learned. And then the third one was, I can't even remember now off the top of my head, but it was just amazing to learn these things. And talking to my friend yesterday, and he's saying that's what people pay for, right? Like they pay for that experience. And I sometimes think, I often think, not fraud's too strong a word, but I don't like that phrase imposter syndrome, because I don't really feel like I get imposter syndrome. But sometimes I'm like, do I really know what I'm talking about? Nearly every time I find out I do, because I give some advice or something and it, it's accurate. I don't think I've ever given advice that's not been accurate.
Yeah, and that's 100% true. And starting our journey as in our IT business, back in the 80s, when I worked for a big multinational US corporate, and we left that and started our own business, and we were talking about how much do we charge? And we go, $20 an hour. And now I don't work for less than $500 an hour. And even that's cheap because that's the 40 years experience that goes behind every decision I make. And the same with Jenny and her consulting. It's you're not paying for the hour the person's in the room, you're paying for the cumulative experience across the years, but also across the different clients you work with. So if you specialize in knee reconstruction surgery, right, you're not going to be any good helping someone with a sore wrist. So if you're in that niche, like you got to have a broad experience in business. That's why we both got into our current roles as kind of coaches, mentors, and facilitators, is because we have a broad range of experience across now I'm probably more specialized in managed services because that's where I spent all my time in tech, whereas Jenny's got a much broader exposure to different businesses. So that's kind of, you're dead right. And you're not paying for just the moment in time. You're paying for the history of what comes along, And
even yesterday in the session, Nick works as a fractional integrator or general manager role for a couple of my EOS clients. So I was running a full EOS session. Nick did his Wednesday morning with our client in Melbourne, remotely, of course, and then came and joined in the session. And within 15 minutes, he'd asked a question of one of the people on the leadership team that I'd been with since, 8 a.m. And this was probably about 2:30 p.m. And that was the highlight of her day. And she said, I wish you'd been here all day. And I was kind of what am I, a block of flats? Like, seriously, okay, what about me? But just that one question was the highlight of her day. So for the two of us, and Nick will often join in when he's free. He's a trained EOS implementer, but he doesn't hold a franchise. But he just comes in because he brings a whole different perspective to mine. And we don't charge any extra. We love working together. We've worked together for 30 odd years.
Really interesting you're saying about paying for experience. Have you seen that? I've seen this kind of meme where it's like a guy hired a plumber, I think it was, and he showed up and did the job in like 2 minutes, but his fee was really high. And he's like, "Oh, how did you do that so quickly? And your fee's so high." And the same thing, he's like, "Because I've got 40 years experience." He's like,
I
you
know
can pay
what to do exactly.
Yeah,
what to
yeah.
do.
He's like, you can pay cheaper and the guy will be here for 4 hours, but I can just do it like that.
And there's the diagram of the horse as well. You know, start off with and then say, my kid can finish that off. Yeah, sure, they can. You're not going to get a horse, but...
Well, I think it comes back to what you're talking about. It's really interesting about starting a podcast for your business. And then also we provide that service is pricing, which can be difficult. And, we have been told, I've been told a couple of times, "Oh, you're quite expensive." And I'm like, yeah, you pay for what you get. Like we're good. We have won awards. We are one of the best. And that was hard to even come to terms with for myself originally, because you do, and it's Deborah, who you know as well, who's really helped coach me on that. And she's like, "No, pay for what the service that you give, and you guys are amazing." Because I've like, you can go find a contractor, that's fine. You can go find a one-on-one contractor from anywhere in the world, Philippines, Bangladesh, India, and they'll be much, much cheaper, guaranteed. I had a call with a guy a few weeks ago, and he wanted a lot of work. He wanted videos, graphics, everything like this. And I quoted him with prices, and his budget was like a quarter of that. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. And I gave him a deal, and he still too much. I was like, we can do a deal, but you want a lot of work. So I was like, you go work with somebody else, that's fine.
Yeah, and we call that, like, I had this discussion yesterday with one of our clients, is it's a white glove experience. Like, you can take the long way at a low cost, but it's the value or the lost opportunity value of you doing it. Like, for example, this podcast. We kind of started playing around with some tools, and then we talked to a few people, and we got introduced to you, and you kind of come back and gave me a bit of a quote, and then the Aussie dollar took a tank, and I go, hang on, this is like 50% more than what I thought. And I go, oh, I'm bugging this. I'll just do it myself. So I go onto YouTube and I go, oh, holy shit, there's a lot of stuff in here. And yeah, mate, no worries. In July, we'll kick it off, and here we are. So
I love to hear that. I didn't know. So is that the route you went down? That's really interesting
100%.
to hear.
Yeah. And it is about, it's the lost opportunity that people don't value their own time. And so many times now, even when we're talking with clients, the owners don't value their time. And we coach all the time. You need to do only the stuff that you can only do, and anything you can delegate, even if it's because a business owner of a reasonable business that's turning over a couple of $1 million, they should value their time at $500 an hour. Now, you're not always going to charge a client that, but the type of work you're doing and the impact you're making on your own business or on a client's business needs to be delivering huge value. So if your time is worth effectively, let's go half, let's say it's $250 an hour, which is a typical high-level technical role these days. If the work you're doing is not adding $250 value to your business or your client's business, don't do it. Doing a podcast edit, I can pay someone else $25 an hour to do that, and I'm 10 times better off. And people just don't value their own time. So it's this concept with the value of your time. And I struggle with that for years myself.
Yeah, and I've worked through that many times. Like, even there's last year we were working with a client and they wanted color grading on the video. And part of me was like, oh, just learn how to do color grading, and I know it's really technical and I know it's quite difficult. And I kind of looked at it for about 20 minutes and I was like, I'm just going to pay an expert to do this, which I did in the end. And it cost a few $100s, but I was like, my time to learn, I don't need to learn a new skill. I don't need to learn how to color grade. This is what somebody's full-time job is, and I can pay them to do that. So yeah, I think in podcasting, if you're creating your own podcast, think about what you can do. It's something we tell people all the time, and even recently there's a company here in Saigon, and I had a really good meeting with them. And then at the end of the meeting, they brought in their marketing guy, and they're like, oh, he's got a microphone, so I think we'll just record it ourselves. I was like, why have we just had this meeting for an hour? And then recently got in touch with them. They're like, yeah, we're just going to do it in-house. And we've blogged about it. We're like, okay, it's going to take you way more time, effort, pain. just hire an expert. And the funny thing is they're a web development company, and I wanted so much to say to them, but one of my team was like, don't say it. I wanted to say to them, how would you feel if you approached one of your clients and they said, we're just going to design the website in-house. We'll get one of those free website developers. You'd be pretty pissed off. So I didn't say it in the end, but if they're listening, you know who I'm talking about. So tell me then, why did you start? What was the incentive to start a podcast for what you guys do?
That's a really interesting question, and we kind of had a little bit of a chat about it. But I suppose from my perspective, yeah, we're at the later part of our career. Like we've sold our business that we ran for 30 odd years, and we're in that give back phase. We have got a lot of connections in the industry, and especially in the managed services IT industry. And I thought, well, I've been on lots of podcasts. I've been on panels. I really like it. People seem to like listening to the stories and experience shares, and that really adds value. We run a couple of masterminds and with our coaching and mentoring clients. And I thought, well, why don't we write a book? So that was kind of like Christmas or New Year's. And it wasn't a New Year's resolution, but it was like, what's a big goal to do for 2025? I said, I searched everywhere for books about and information about customer service management. There are some theoretical books and there's some stuff from the US, but there's nothing based in Australia. And so there was nothing really available in the Australian market. And I said, well, we've got a lot of experience. We're passionate about good customer service. So let's do something. And we looked at each other and I said, well, I've always said, Jenny, you should write a book. And she goes, I'm not writing a book. And I said, well, I mean, I can theorize and I can say stuff that comes out really articulate sometimes, that some of it's complete rubbish, but and she goes, oh, can you say that again? No, I don't know where it came from. I didn't think it through and, build the sentence up in my mind. It just came out and I have no idea what I said. So it's now gone.
True visionary.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, why don't we know plenty of really cool people. Everyone's got their own experiences. Everyone's different. There's so many different ways to skin the cat of good customer service, and especially in the technology industry, like even today in this room. You'd set it up again next week, you'd do it differently, And I said, well, one good way of getting some material to write a book is to interview people. Take a note of Mike McCallowitz, I think it was. He's started a business over in Adelaide, and he's a Matt. Yeah. Anyway, I learned from him, and I saw him speak at an event in the US, and we actually got him to come in and speak with our entrepreneurs organization in Melbourne. And his number one thing I learned out of, he wanted to start a consulting business in Adelaide. He knew nobody. He said, how can I do this? So he basically, I don't know whether I think he took a free job, a commission-only job as a reporter for a magazine. And then he rang everybody up, said, I'm on a reporter. I'm writing an article about technology. Can I come and interview you? And he did 50 interviews, and that's what he built his business on. Super successful because he had the real answers. So that was kind of the driver for me, was to help to collect some data, get some real stories and some anecdotes, take the key learnings, somehow put that into a book of some description down the past. Like podcasting is the first way to start that. And so far it's been a ball. So yeah, we're really enjoying the conversations, and the people that have been on and go, when are you going to release this stuff? Well, it's coming, guys. We're doing this first. Yeah, it's coming. Yeah.
No, that's really exciting. And one of the things you can do is take the transcripts from those episodes and then use that to make a book, especially with AI these days. Feed it all in and then be like, write me a book.
We actually had that conversation.
Did you
in the
really?
lift on the way out of the hotel to come here this morning that, to feed the transcript in, pull those nuggets out. I think sort of topping on to what Nick said, we're both members of Entrepreneurs Organisation. We have been for 7-8 years now. And a lot of the learnings that we've taken through EO membership is people don't want advice. They want to hear stories and experiences. Don't tell me how I should do things or how you would do it. Tell me a time when you've actually had that thing happen. So we really structured the questions that we ask in the podcast around, tell us, like one of the things, sort of the hero story, tell us about a time when you swooped in and saved the day. And most people love talking about themselves.
Yeah, I love that question. Yeah.
And it's just sort of to bring those nuggets out of, when people in our industry really come into their own. And it's not just, changing your password or whatever, but it's really coming in when everything's turned to shit, or you can see it's about to and go in and save them from a disaster. So yeah, bringing that experience share into our podcast, because that's become our style of how we how we think and how we operate.
So what's been the biggest challenge that you've overcome creating the podcast?
Your own fear of listening to yourself talk. To be honest,
It's a big one. It's a real one for many people.
It is, and I remember when I first got invited to be on a panel at a conference, and it was us. It was one in Melbourne. There's probably 200-300 people there, and I've like, what do I say? You know, like, who's going to want to listen to me? And one of the guys came up to me after and said, "Mate, your story that you told was amazing. I got so much information out of that." And I thought, okay, so it's not about making up a story or some information that you're trying to teach somebody. It's just like Jenny said, it's experience shares. We're not teachers. We're not running a curriculum that says we're teaching you how to do this based on a theoretical book. It's real life experience. And that's why we want to do the podcast, get real life experience shares out of people who everyone's got these nuggets in them and they just don't know about it because they're so busy doing what they're doing every day. So we have to make a friendly, fun atmosphere for them to share a few of their nuggets, and people out there listening will go, wow, that just changed my day. They might reach out and connect with them. They might bring them up and they might say, hey, I had that problem. Can you dive into it a bit more for me? Can you help me solve that problem in my business? And that's it's about a connection for us, 100%. Yeah.
Now, I know that we are your provider, producer, editor, but what has been the difference outsourcing that? Like, as you mentioned, you were looking into how to do it yourself. In reality, how has that made a difference? I know we've only just started, but
I think, I was a bit on the fence with outsourcing that kind of stuff because it's technology, right? It's a bit of software and it's got a couple of cables and a bit of lights. And,
it seems so simple,
so
right?
simple.
Even setting up this room, I was like, I'll be able to do it in a couple of days. Like 2 weeks later, I'm like.
But that was the royal we. We should be able to do this. Jenny, just
I don't want to do it.
That.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the you bit comes in there.
We're recording episode 6, I think, next week, and we've got a system now, thanks to a comment you made to me last week or 2 weeks ago, because they're software tools and they operate differently depending on how you approach the project. So I was doing it completely backwards, and you got to learn these things. Like, you can't put virtual backgrounds in video in some platforms. Some you can, but then they don't record each person individually, so it's really difficult to edit. So all that's the stuff that I've kind of stumbled over, and eventually I've said, oh, look, I'm just going to go with 7 million bikes and not have to worry about this.
And has that made a difference then? Does it take a load off?
Literally, it's, hey guys, here's the next episode. This is what we want. And you come back a few days later and say, there you are. And I watch it and go, hey, we sound pretty cool. What's not to love?
And now the challenge is just thinking about a good topic or someone we run across. Like even with the clients we were with yesterday, we will branch out of just technology guests on our podcast. It's all about service. It's called Control Alt Deliver. So it's all about delivering awesome customer service.
I do love the name, by the way. It's a pretty cool name.
Yeah, it's got that little tech thing in there. But initially we were focusing on technology and managed services because that's what needs help. But it's every industry with customer service, even to the point of the hotel reception. Like yesterday, the guys did a great job, but you go to other hotels and it's just, there's no service. They don't even understand why they're there, we're always looking for cool guests.
And we talked before about, the why, and I'm not sure if I even shared this with Nick, but maybe 6 months ago, we were running an EOS session and no, we did have this conversation. Nick asked the comment, this is a client that has a software development business and then an IT managed services. And Nick asked the question around, I think it was, and a lot of MSPs operate at a very, very low profit margin. And Nick said, well, what's the point of running a business when you're making such a low profit margin? What is the point? And we'd probably said that to them numerous times before, but for some reason that day it hit home. And the leaders of that business often ask each other that question again, why are we doing this? And it's just completely changed the way they think about running their business. So the question about why we decided to do the podcast, That's what we want to be able to do, is to ask those sort of questions and get people, whether it's the person that we're actually interviewing on the podcast or whoever's listening, that, just to get people to think and rethink, well, why am I doing this? If I'm only making such a low profit margin and I'm working, 80 hours a week and all this stress and never get away, what am I doing this for?
Well, you got me thinking now, why am I doing this? And the profit margin is in the negative right now, but that's okay. It's going to turn around eventually.
But you're in investment phase, right? You
Yeah,
build a
we just
studio,
started.
It's going to, and I've got, even just sitting here for the last, half an hour or so, I'm looking around thinking, I think there's so many things we could do different here to make it much cooler and easier for you.
So what is the final goal of your podcast? Is it to build business for yourself? Do you want people to come back and hire your services?
Well, it definitely was not the initial motivation behind it. The motivation was to create a community conversation and help people do better at customer service. And I thought logically a book would be a good way, or a series of articles or something. And then how do you start that? That led to the podcast. Yeah, I think it's more a following and a community. And if that leads to some extra business, then that's great. We loved helping people, but it wasn't the driver. I wouldn't say I'm going to invest 10 grand in podcasts and it's going to give me a 10x return. That thought process never went through my brain. So, yeah.
And it's really, as Nick alluded to earlier, we see this as our sort of give back time. People do think that we've semi-retired in Bali, but some weeks we actually even work 5 days. But we need a weekend away to recover. But we see it as a give back. And if we sort of end our time in the MSP industry having produced a book that is then around forever, I think that was my goal, really.
But I can tell you some side effects that's happened. One of our guests that we've had on our podcast got very excited and built his own studio in his office, and he's definitely wants to grow his business based on recording and sharing technical stuff for his clients, because there's a big gap in that marketplace. You can get technical training on a bit of software from the software vendor, but real world, like, how do I actually use ChatGPT to help me, or how do I, what's the best way to start my Mac up in the morning or my Windows machine to get the most efficiency? Do I need to power cycle it once a week? And the answer to everyone listening is you absolutely do. Shut the damn thing down on a Friday. Work is over, shut it down and turn it back on Monday morning, and your life will be better for the entire week. I guarantee. There's my tip for the day.
Well, I think there's been so much valuable information here for podcasters, even though it may not seem like it, because I know as a podcaster, there's so many complications, no matter how many cameras that you're running, no matter how many microphones, or even you're just editing. Turning it on and off really does. I mean, it's the only thing I know. I do it all the time. Off and on. Turn that off and on. Turn that off and on. Do all that stuff. And I think what you've explained as well is the beauty of podcasting is that it's so versatile that people use it for so many different reasons. So one of the things we cover a lot on this podcast is growth. We did an episode recently, how to get 50 million downloads. Biggest question I always get is monetization. How do I monetize? And the thing I say is, don't think about sponsorships. That doesn't work. Monetize your own services, sell your own services, network, use it as a networking tool to talk to people. So people have different reasons, but I love that your reason is something to give back, which is something that I've not come across very often, but it's a beautiful thing. And it's something that podcasting can just do. And I will guarantee, though, inadvertently, you're going to make those connections through those conversations. And I will almost guarantee within 10, 20 episodes, you'll have somebody come to you and say, hey, can we work with you? And it's going to pay for anything that you're paying for the podcast. It will 10 times it will pay it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if you go into it with the right intent, you build it, they will come. And you might do all your work here, but all of a sudden from left field, something else will happen. The world is an amazing place and the universe has a really weird way of giving back.
It definitely does. Well, on that note, Jenny, Nick, thank you so much for joining me on Smarter Podcasting. First episode actually that I've recorded in the full studio setup, because I've done one, but we didn't have everything set up. This is the first proper episode in the Saigon Podcast Studio. So if you are based in Vietnam, if you're based in Saigon, get in touch with me. Go to saigonpodcaststudio.com. You can book a session, but you're probably listening from overseas. So go to 7millionbikes.com. You can book a call with me. I can help you just like I've helped Jenny and Nick about starting your own podcast. Go to social media, all of that stuff. And don't forget, like, subscribe. And the best thing that you can do for me is share this episode with somebody else who wants to make an amazing podcast. So Nick, Jenny, thank you so much. Time for lunch.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.